Thank you for joining us. I will do just a little intro and babble away a bit whilst we've got people jumping in, and give you some background on my position and what I've done in my legal career today. So my name's Jackie Steffen. I'm the Relationship Manager at the College of Law. I am a qualified lawyer, and I did my law degree, I think it's about 20 years ago. It doesn't feel like it, but I believe it is. At La Trobe, and then did what was articles, and then became a lawyer, and I practiced mostly in insurance and professional indemnity for about 5 years, and then moved into the an in-house role managing claims for a range of Lloyd's syndicates in London, and I did that for about 10 years. So the beauty, I guess, of a law degree is using the skills and the knowledge that I acquired in that role to then move across into this current role at the College of Law. So just while we're still letting people jump in, I might briefly introduce our panel we have for you today. Firstly, I was going to thank Tamara. Tamara Carlisle is your Vice President in charge of off-campus affairs at Geelong Deakin Law Society. Thank you, Tamara, so much for agreeing to organise this event today, and all the work you've done in the background to facilitate this. So greatly appreciated, and thank you very much to you and the Geelong Deakin Law Student Society. Let me introduce this fabulous panel I've got for you today. I'll just introduce their names, and they can give you a little bit of a background and snapshot of their experience. We've got today joining us, firstly, Jack Carmody. Jack is a recent PLT graduate from the College of Law, and also works at WorkSafe Victoria. So a lot going on in that space, no doubt, during COVID, Jack.
Oh, certainly. Hi, everybody. How are you going? I've come as a mature age student. I finished my degree this year at Victoria University, and I've come from a policing military background, and mostly as a detective at Vicpol. And I finished my degree in June this year, after 9 years of part-time study. I actually managed to do torts with my son, who was first year last year, second year this year. So there was a bit of a competition going on, but he's blitzing it. He doesn't have to study too hard like his old man had to. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed the PLT. It was icing on the cake, knowing that I'm sort of getting close to admission.
Very exciting time for you, Jack. Joining us as well is Susan Pincus. She's a careers professional at the College of Law, and I have the distinct privilege of working with Susan very closely. Thank you, Susan, for joining us today.
That's okay. Thank you. That's such a nice introduction. It's great to be here on this beautiful sunny day. So I work with Jackie at the College of Law as a careers professional, and I basically work with PLT students and alumni, and I support them in transitioning into practicing and moving into the legal profession. And my background is that I worked in human resources, also in recruitment in the corporate sector for far too many years. And then I made a move across to careers education. And I actually worked at Victoria University in their law school. But Jack, I don't know, we didn't seem to cross over at all. So I worked very closely there, and absolutely loved it, trying to work with students and get them job ready, and also starting to kind of help them forge their profiles as well. So that's a little bit about me.
Thanks,
Thank
Susan.
you.
And lastly, for our panel today, we have Ravi. Ravi Wickramarapmi is from Gatehouse Legal Recruitment, and Ravi's a legal recruitment consultant and a graduate of Geelong Deakin Law Student Society.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Jackie, for the introduction. Yeah, look, it's great to be part of the panel today, you know, to be able to share our insights and, you know, see what we can do to help everyone out. Yeah, so like you said, I'm a legal recruitment consultant with Gatehouse Legal Recruitment here in Melbourne. So we specialise in legal recruitment and building legal teams for both actually in-house private practice and also government as well. And it's quite exciting to see how many up and coming lawyers there are out there. And also, especially with our audience today, it's also great to see, and I think you fall into this category too, Jack, taking the leap of faith and looking to take on a law degree and, you know, pursue that later in life, which I think is awesome. So looking forward to today.
Yeah, thank you. For everyone that has any questions, if you want to pop them in the Q&A box, we'll get to them towards the end of the session. We'll probably try and leave sort of 10-15 minutes. Feel free to ask us anything. We all sort of bring a range of knowledge and experience and background to the session, but also I'm sure Jack will answer any questions on the PLT program and I guess life juggling, commitments and work and study. So I'm going to kick off with Ravi and ask Ravi a bit about sharing with us an insight into the current job market. I know students are a little bit concerned about what is going on, and I guess sort of the implications for COVID.
Yeah, you know, I think we spend a lot of time, you know, trying to get up to date with what's going on with COVID and the job market. And I guess a lot of us do come across a lot of the information that comes to us through the media, which, you know, creates a bit of fear and uncertainty within us. So look, being involved in this side of things and actually having a good insight into what's kind of happening. Look, it's without a doubt, you know, I guess at the moment, a lot of firms and really in-house companies as well are very careful and kind of taking a step back in terms of recruiting people, specifically lawyers, especially in the private practice setting. There are a lot of hiring freezes and things like that are happening. But look, in terms of graduates, you know, there are still a lot of companies and also the firms out there who are still running their graduate programs. They're still very much alive. I know for a fact that a lot of firms ran, I think, their second round of interviews and things like that for graduate programs last week, assessment centres, etc. So no doubt there has been quite a significant impact and implication of COVID on the job market. You know, we have seen quite a significant drop in, it used to be a bit of a candidate-driven market. It's now kind of flipped in that there's plenty of candidates, but there's not enough roles going. However, I guess the areas that a lot of people, you know, would be good to focus on if that is your area of interest and that kind of stem from the implications of COVID are things like insolvency, well, just litigation in general. Obviously, a lot of this impacts people's businesses, you know, contracts that are currently in place and things like that, which obviously is a breathing ground for litigation. So insolvency, restructuring, bankruptcy, but also property construction is also a big one. You know, I think ScoMo would probably agree with me when I say that further infrastructure and developments of our economy is the way of us coming out of COVID safely. And therefore construction within government and also within private practice is still quite active, but also litigation on that side as well, obviously with a lot of builders not being able to pay up and things like that. So what I can and also commercial law as well. So what I can kind of say is that for any up and coming lawyers or graduates or juniors, is to focus on those areas where you can see that there is quite a significant impact on COVID. That's actually creating more work as well as personal injury. Like a lot of companies are doing class actions and things like that. So there's going to be a lot of work that'll actually generate from COVID for the legal profession.
Yeah, I agree, Ravi, and I actually think that I'd be interested in your views on this, but I think the implications for COVID in relation to legal recruitment is possibly more at the higher end than it is down at the graduate end, at the junior end. So it might be in promotions to partnership, that might be delayed perhaps, or expanding the partnership or the drawdowns by partners. But I feel like it's perhaps has far less impact for the graduate end.
That's right. So we are finding that a lot of the people that we're kind of talking to at the moment are of the more senior, we're talking senior associates, special counsels, and even partner level lawyers are the ones who are kind of looking or putting the feelers out, so to speak. And we're finding that the sole reason why people are kind of looking in that at that level to change or to go to a new role is because they feel that at least for the next 12 to 18 months, they may not see a promotion or a pay rise or anything like that because of the fact that firms are being quite careful as to where they allocate their funds. Whereas for junior lawyers, it's actually an opportunity to step up and to actually take on more responsibility and be thrown in the deep end, really, and learn and quickly grow. Yeah.
So lots of opportunities, to be honest.
Absolutely.
I know in insurance, there is never a quiet period in professional indemnity and that sort of work. So just as you said, I know that there are areas that are certainly still busy and recruiting. So definitely worth keeping in mind. Thanks, Ravi.
I should have actually added insurance, in general insurance, professional indemnity, public liability. They are also very, very active at the moment.
Yeah. And lots of opportunities in those areas. A lot of students don't perhaps realise that often in litigation, some of the biggest litigation that insurers are sitting behind the parties. So it's interesting work, varied, and can be big and small, and lots of opportunity to work with lots of different insurers, law firms, lots of professionals. So it's certainly worth an area worth considering, I think. I know I've come from it, but that's my experience.
Absolutely.
So Susan, perhaps if we can ask you, what advice then, based on sort of information that Ravi shared with us, what advice do you have for students that are perhaps preparing themselves, during COVID? They've had some time on their hands. What can they do if they've got perhaps a year or two to go in their study?
Absolutely. So there's probably a few things that I'd suggest, and one of the ones that's very, very important that hopefully a lot of students might have already started is starting to build their relationships and their contacts. So I am a big advocate for reaching out and having conversations with individuals in the profession. But before I do that, I would suggest that you just do your research. You prepare for those meetings, because often if you are speaking to someone, their time is very valuable. So it's important that you go in prepared and you research maybe the practice area that they're in and that person's background, as opposed to ringing up and asking them if they've got a job. So they'll detect that very quickly. So trying to work out who you should speak to, whether you've got some contacts that could lead you to that person, as opposed to just ringing up out of the blue and having a 10-minute chat. The other thing I would also suggest is to try things out. Someone mentioned in a webinar I was recently listening to, try before you buy and get a taste for the work. So just expose yourself to as many different areas, practice areas as you can, because often if you get fixated on one area, it just might mean that you don't get to experience the other. And often you might think, I'm going to start out, I'm really, really interested only in, say, the community space, but then you end up being quite interested in the commercial space. So I think kind of the more experiences that you have is only going to set you up. And that includes like suburban firms, it might be regional firms, it might be even going interstate and working in Alice Springs, once people are able to do that. Shadowing a barrister, there's kind of lots of those opportunities. And the third thing would be just making sure that you're involved. So putting your hand up to get involved in the student law societies, get involved in mooting if that's kind of something that you're interested in.
Oh,
I think we've lost her.
Have we lost Susan?
Yeah, I think so.
We'll just let her refresh a little bit, I think. I know that Susan is a big advocate, as she's just said. Oh, you're back.
Oh, she's back.
I'm back. Okay,
oh, good.
Great. Yeah, I don't know what happened then. Sorry. Getting involved in mentoring programs through the Law Institute. Just basically saying yes.
Yeah. That's actually great advice. And it doesn't have to be something of everything. If you have a lot on your plate, choosing one thing would be better than not doing anything. Yeah,
absolutely. And even if you just kind of almost plan it out that each semester you just do one or two things. So always, I'm a big believer about taking the small steps, and it will then snowball and it leads to other things as well. But yeah, being really kind of connected and curious and reaching out, talking to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that would apply for those students who are about to graduate as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully that they've already started doing that, but it would be, the same message. And it would be just keeping a bit of an open mind as well. I think it's better, particularly in this environment, to kind of have your backup plans. So always good to have plan A, B, and C. And you might not necessarily start in your ideal position, and that's fine. It might just mean that it's 2-3 jobs away. It's just a matter of getting experience and exposure. That's kind of, I think, the really critical thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You need to get your foot in the door, no matter how it happens, in what avenue or in what sort of way that sort of eventuates. It's just the most critical thing. Just try and get that foot in the door.
It is, and I think it is hard because often I find, because I speak to students all the time, that a lot of them are quite nervous about having that conversation with people. But I don't know, I'd like to think that people in the profession are particularly open to having those conversations because they've been through it themselves, so they know what it's like. And it is a relationship-based profession. So I think it's really about getting used to perhaps feeling quite awkward and uncomfortable, but also the more that you do it, you get better at it. So you might not get it perfect, but you get a little bit more comfortable with it each time.
Yeah. And if you are a person that perhaps is a bit nervous in approaching someone, my suggestion would be to start looking at LinkedIn and making sure you've worked on your profile, and then seeing if there are perhaps areas or law firms or lawyers that grab your attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even like if you're listening to a webinar, send a note saying it was great to hear you today. I really enjoyed, took away a lot of insights, and connecting with the person that way, as opposed to just sending them an invite. Like introducing yourself, finding the commonality, I think is kind of really important, and people will appreciate that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Now, I know that we're going to talk about positive mindset, but we might leave that to the end and all talk about that, because I think we've all got, I'm sure Ravi and Jack's got their views on that too. Jack, now just a question, I guess, from a sort of a personal approach. How did you juggle work, family commitments, and PLT?
Yeah, well, it's like after 9 years, my partner was sort of over the study, but yeah, it's through support of your family, you get through these things, and just little sleep. But look, it is a juggle, and I'm lucky. My son's 20, so and he's doing it as well, so he understands, and he's sort of been exposed to that since he was a young boy. What I did, I sought permission from the Victorian Legal Admissions Board to finish off my honours thesis with PLT. I highly recommend you don't do that, because there's a workload there with the PLT, and it needs your full attention. And I would recommend just to focus on that. And look, I was impatient. After 9 years, I was starting to just want to get it done. And the way I juggled it, I guess, is that I'm lucky. I've got some flexible work arrangements, but you've got to break it up. You need to have a break. Get away from the computer. Get away from law. Go for a walk. Celebrate with your family. Little milestones that you do.
Yeah.
And obviously family's important to me, so it was just to be around them when I've had enough. Just switch off and just recharge the batteries, get back into it, and then and it's a process. There's going to be an ending to it all. But the support the College of Law gave the students is wonderful. I thought the lecturers were very approachable. Albeit it was online. I was lucky enough to do the first week at the College of Law in Melbourne, and then it went on. Basically, the week after, it went online. So the support there, the resources there, I found were excellent. And if I had needed to have a question answered, it was a quick message to the supervising lecturer, and they'd get back to you straight away. But and it was, I think that made things easy for me, because there were times there, because I'm time poor when I was, and probably still am sometimes, but I'm time poor when I was going through this process, particularly doing the honours. And it was good just to get look, I've got a question here, shoot it off, and come back, and I didn't have to worry about it too much.
And did you take it on part-time, or did you take it on full-time?
No, full-time. Again, because I was too impatient.
Of course you did.
But like again, I was working full-time. I was doing my honours thesis, and I was doing the PLT full-time.
Wow.
And it's madness. And my partner says that I am mad generally, and so is my son, actually. But look, if I could recommend, just if you're in no hurry to get it over and done with, take your time and enjoy it. But look, again, I've been doing it for 9 years. I'm 53 now, and you sort of get over it a little bit. You just want it impatient to get it done.
Yeah, and which makes sense. I mean, I think if you were, this was perhaps your first career, going into law, and you had less sort of interaction with the profession if you weren't working, then you can see why it's great for students to be fully involved and get as much as they can out of it, so that they can take their next step confidently.
Certainly, most certainly. Look, I'm lucky. I've been exposed to the criminal justice system for over 30 years, actually it's coming up to nearly 40, I guess. But I've been in the courts, and I've given evidence in all, murder, you name it. I've been exposed to it. So I come from it through a different perspective, I guess. I've been exposed to that, not so much your legal firms, but certainly from prosecutions,
Yeah.
and that's probably where I'm heading anyway. I'm looking to go into the bar. I think just it suits my lifestyle and my family requirements. But you certainly, I'm at that point now where I've got to start thinking about rebranding and how I actually go about doing that. And it's interesting to that process to go through.
Yes. Yes. Which probably leads me nicely into a question I was going to open to the panel. How important is it to, I think Susan's touched on it, to build your network, but also to build up that brand? Really, I guess, Jack, if you're talking about moving to the bar, it's largely dependent upon networks, I suspect. I haven't practiced at the bar, but also, yes, your years of experience and background really, to some large extent, dictates your brand.
Yeah, look, I'm lucky. I've got friends that are at the bar, mostly ex-coppers, and I've got one who's a magistrate. But look, networking is critical, and I heard LinkedIn mentioned before, and you need to really utilise that tool to its full capacity. So it's a great tool to use. And I've just been messaging barristers that I've got an interest in, just to connect with them.
Yeah.
And again, just a short message introducing who I am. You got to have the confidence of doing that too, I guess. But the only way to get it is just take that first step. And like speaking to a barrister friend of mine last week, there's at the bar, there's something like 280,000 case backlog they're talking about because of this COVID. That's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's great because it means there's a bit of work there. But
yes.
But there's certainly, for me personally, that sort of appeals to me, and I like the idea with the bar too, because you work by yourself, you're self-employed, and you certainly have flexibility when you want to work and when you don't want to work.
Yeah. Absolutely. Ravi or Susan, what's your views on building up your network and developing your own brand?
Probably the most critical thing that you can do is to build your personal brand and as a result, build your networks. I mean, if we're talking about the bar, for example, or barristers, I mean, even as a lawyer, if you're in the area of litigation, you're briefing counsel a lot. And as a part of that, you need to have a certain personal brand and keep building that personal brand because, like, for example, if Jack's in the bar, say in a couple of years, and then he's there for 10 or 12 years before someone else decides to come in, but they've spent that time briefing someone like Jack, and all of a sudden there's all these networks that he's built up, or he or she's built up, that'll assist them in building their own business as a barrister. But from a private practice point of view, and as a graduate or as a junior lawyer, you got to, I think a lot of people will find networking quite a daunting process, and and it becomes some sort of a fear in connecting with people. But I think it's important to try and get yourself out of that shell, and really put yourself out there. When you're up and coming, and you're still in law school or doing your PLTs, you need to utilize that time to build your networks. Obviously during COVID, it's a lot harder, but prior or post-COVID, attending events organized by the College of Law or by the LIV, or even firms in general, whether it be trivia nights, cocktail events, whatever it might be, there'll be people there that you can strike a conversation with to help you build up your networks. It's like, for example, I've met Susan, and through Susan, I've met you, Jackie, and now through Jackie, I've now met Jack. So like that, it just keeps, it's a flow-on effect, So because of that, it really helps you. And I've told this to Susan many times as well when we've had a chat on the phone. And I've said, look, the one thing that you need to remember is to keep talking to them, keep in contact with them, but always leave them with something to remember about you. If you leave them with something to remember about you, that's the one thing that'll stick in their minds forever. And eventually, there might come a time where the legal profession is quite small in terms of lawyers talk to lawyers. And, we've got, if we've got Jack and Jill who are sat down for dinner one day, two partners at two law firms, and they're talking, and Jack goes, I think I need a junior insurance lawyer. Do you know anyone? And then Jill's spoken to this person who's left something to remember them by. He goes, yeah, actually, hang on, I do have someone. I'll get them in contact with you. So like that, it's just so critical because you never know. It won't pay off immediately, but it will pay off.
No, I agree. And in fact, perhaps the last two roles that I've had over the last 12 years are exactly that situation. Through just word of mouth, through connections, and not even looking for a job per se, but it was just a good opportunity and things like that. So a perfect
so powerful.
Yeah,
so
perfect
powerful
example.
Yeah,
Susan.
I was going to say the same thing. I mean, you go to a lot of effort to build your network, and so it's really critical, therefore, that you keep in touch with that network as well. Because I think if you're just trying to build a connection with someone purely because you're wanting a job, they'll see through that pretty quickly. So I think it's kind of so important when you're having conversations to be yourself and just to be well prepared, because that's also what your brand is.
Yes.
If you present as someone that hasn't done any preparation, you don't even know anything about the person, I can guarantee you that they will certainly remember you, but not for the right reasons. So I think that's really, really important. And also even just trying to sometimes do a little bit of a self audit, so where you are actually thinking, well, what is it about me that I can bring to an organization? So what are my selling points, and really, why would they be interested in me? So really kind of putting a bit of a business case together and identifying where you do have gaps and whether they can be filled through doing short courses, or whether they're just more skill gaps and you just need to get experience to how you do that best. So I think it's kind of important that you also do think about, well, what actually is my brand? And if you're courageous enough, ask people, how would you describe me in 3 words, and hear what they have to say and start working on it that way. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really interesting, the self-audit idea. I kind of wish someone had told me that at the start, because it's not something that you normally think of unless you're prompted.
Yeah. I mean, I remember this just one person that she was a PLT alumni, and she was recently on a panel, and she was just so impressive in that she worked on her brand when she was at uni. She was phenomenal. She worked backwards. She knew she wanted to go into family law, so she identified a firm that she wanted to work for. She kept in contact with them. They didn't have any opportunities at the time, but she then studied the profile of the actual partner, and she then realized that she had some gaps, and so she worked on those, and she really aligned herself to the values of that organization as well, and they ended up creating a position for her, and she's still there and loving it. But she was so strategic and so ahead of the game in terms of working her brand backwards.
Wow. Very impressive.
Yeah.
And so I guess we've already shared a lot of information and insights for law students that are perhaps towards the end and looking at PLT and the next step in their career. Do we have any other specific advice or tips, maybe like 1 or 2 simple takeaways for students to go, okay, this is something I can start doing tomorrow?
I want to touch on something that Susan spoke about earlier, which I think would be good to kind of elaborate a little, add a little bit more on top. it was to do with almost like the try before you buy concept that you spoke about, Susan. Your time as a student and as a PLT student, that's the time to try and buy, not after you get admitted. After you get admitted, if you spend time 2, maybe 3 years trying and buying or trial and error, you're going to fall so far behind in terms of your career, but also in terms of your personal growth in your workplace, but also in your life in terms of financially and things like that. So it's very important that you utilize that time before you're admitted to do that, because if not, if you try and, I guess, market yourself as a generalist lawyer who's got a bit of family, a bit of criminal, a bit of insurance, a bit of this, a bit of that, that doesn't cut it in the legal profession. You're not going to land a great job by being a generalist. You can be a generalist insurance lawyer with various types of insurance experience, or a generalist commercial lawyer with generalist type of commercial experience, but you need to know by the time you get to, I guess, halfway through even your first year after admission, you need to know what you want to do, because that's when you become attractive to firms or companies. And a lot of people who go into private practice have an idea in their head that by 5 or 6 years they want to move in-house or something like that. Well, if that's what you want to do, you need to set yourself up for that. So, and part of that is knowing exactly what you want to do from the beginning.
Yeah, so true. And there's nothing wrong with identifying a path, starting out on it and realizing, well, you know what, it actually isn't for me. I've given it a go. You then can move across and change directions. But you're right, Ravi. I think it's also good to realize, as Susan said, do that self-audit. Not only realize sort of your strengths and weaknesses, but think about the areas that align with your own values, not just the organisation or firm, but what practice area is interesting to you and why. I know that we spoke to a partner of a firm in WA, and she had said, family law, that's exactly where I'm going to go and work. And she started after PLT in family law, and within 6 months she said, I hated it. I just hated it. I could not. Stayed at the firm but just moved to a different practice area, so ended up working commercial. Never thought she would ever stay in commercial. I don't think it ever considered it. And so it moved across to commercial, loved it, spent the rest of her career, 10 years at this firm in commercial. It was an interesting story.
My wife, she's a recent PLT graduate from the College of Law as well, and she spent a lot of time saying, I want to be a criminal lawyer. And then that sort of kind of changed, and then eventually, but she'd spend that time also saying how much she didn't want to be a corporate lawyer. And guess what she's doing now? So that's the thing, like, you'd love the idea of a certain thing in your head, but things change and things happen, and you kind of have to, take that as it comes.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Susan said before, I think it was Susan mentioned it in relation to webinars and listening to people. You can take someone's story, like changing directions in practice areas, take that into consideration. Think about the avenues and the practice areas that might interest you, but then also look at the other options that are available, because perhaps it's something that you can experience as a intern and work out as an intern. Well, I want to go into family, and then go, no, actually, it's not for me at all. There is a difference between learning it at uni and practicing it, and the realities of it. It is very different, for sure. Another thing that I was going to mention, Susan, is our favourite topic, having a positive mindset for students.
Yeah. Well, I'm always raving on about this growth mindset and how important it is, and attitude. And I still am a huge believer in that it's really, really important. And I know that it is not for the faint-hearted, and it is tough and out there. And, you get knockbacks, and apply for positions and you don't hear back. And I often have people starting off their conversation with me saying, oh, look, it must be because I'm later to the field, and I'm too old, or I'm too young and I don't have enough experience, or whatever it is. But I think it's a matter of maybe just trying as much as you can not to take things so personally, and just to keep going, but reflecting, because I suppose, you know, the definition of madness is doing the same thing every day and expecting a different result. So it is important, as part of that mindset, is to kind of reflect and to ask for feedback and to take on that feedback, and maybe just to change your approach and your strategy. So, I mean, I think kind of one of the biggest things I hear is from PLT students and alumni that they are only relying on advertised search as their sole job search strategy. And I'm thinking, well, they're missing out on a huge part of the market. So, you know, it's more important that they're building their relationships and their networks. At the same time, they can apply for advertised jobs, but, you know, it's much better to be talking to people and to be engaging and finding out intel from those people. So I think kind of, yeah, it is hard, but it is a matter of just persisting, soldiering on, being patient, because it isn't a quick thing.
No.
And just being pragmatic as well, kind of not setting yourself up for unrealistic expectations where you're setting yourself up to be disappointed, and knowing that it just takes time and perseverance. Just like Jack, took 9 years for you, and look at you now, you know. Yeah,
Exactly. I completely agree with that. And yeah, and Jack is an example, you know, studying for 9 years and being on the cusp of finalising his papers to be admitted, when it's an exceptionally exciting time. Jack, do you, from sort of your perspective, I guess, as you're about to, you know, have your name on the bar roll, what sort of tips or advice do you think are useful from your perspective?
Yeah, like from my, you know, you need determination and tenacity. You know, play to your strengths. Identify your weaknesses and develop those. You know, be mindful. You know, if you want to go to the bar, you know, do a bit of a self-assessment. Are you an introvert or extrovert? Me, I'm a bit of an extrovert, so I don't think I've got any issues talking or putting forward an argument. But some people may have, and if they're determined to go to the bar, practice mooting, public speaking are key themes. Also, you know, if you're going into particular areas of the law, family law, criminal law, you're dealing with at times the misery of society, and you need to understand, particularly from a mental health point of view, whether you can cope with that. You'll see some grotesque sides, and you need to understand that it's part of your profession. Family law, you're dealing with emotions, and it wouldn't be inhuman not to take on some of those emotions, and you've got to prepare yourself to, well, can I actually do that? You know, sometimes, you know, in just applying online for jobs, I think be bold, be a little bit cheeky, and try and arrange. I know it's difficult in the current times, but go up and meet the people that you're dealing with at the law firms, and you know, introduce yourself. Go to the HR department. Look, this is who I am. I bring some great skill sets. I think you should hire me. There's nothing. Be a little bit cheeky, and they'll remember you. Probably, you know, hopefully for a good reason. But you know, you have to again. It is critical to brand yourself. Networking's critical. But you know, and determination. You know, to get through a university course requires determination and stubbornness sometimes. But and if you can do that, you can really do anything. I feel from my point of view, after 9 years, it's like a weight off your shoulders. Now I'm ready to just tackle the world.
That's fantastic.
But yeah, no, I do. Be bold is what will be one of the key takeaways, and develop your weaknesses and play to your strengths.
Yeah, I completely agree. For anyone that wants to, feel free to drop in a question in the Q&A box. We don't have anything at the moment, which is fine, but so we'll just keep chatting for another 5 minutes. But definitely don't hesitate to ask any of the panelists a question. One thing I was going to mention is the opportunities that are available, I guess, outside of the traditional law paths. I know we've touched on it a little bit earlier, Ravi, but I mean, Jack's an example working at WorkSafe, that there are numerous government departments, organisations, non-for-profits, hiring lawyers. I mean, most businesses of a substantial size have a in-house team.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think, Jack, you're in compliance, is that right?
Yeah, that's right, Ravi. Yes.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of lawyers.
Yeah. So compliance, I mean, WorkSafe is probably one of the biggest employers in terms of the non-traditional legal side of things. So WorkSafe employ a lot of compliance and regulatory and risk type of individuals who have a legal background, which in terms of risk and compliance, a lot of in-house companies would see value in someone like that, because obviously when you're running a large business or a large corporation, risk and compliance are the two things that you need to be most aware of, because that's the thing that can drive the company right to the bottom. So that's a very good non-legal but legal background that you can have to follow. The other thing is, things like even something similar to what you're doing, Jack. You're like a relationship manager within a legal setting is again a very, very good opportunity. I think that the job that you have is even I'd love to do what you're doing. Like it's a really cool, enjoyable role. And you're still in the legal profession. You're dealing with legal professionals. And it's important to know the law in order to do your job. It's very, very, very important. But then there's also so many other things you can do. If you've got a commercial background, you can do things like, for the government, you can work as a contracts manager, where basically you're managing contracts. You're not necessarily practicing, but there's that aspect of law and the experience that you've had as a lawyer that you can implement into being something like that. Honestly, the world's your oyster when it comes to non-legal opportunities that have a legal touch to it, and really any company can implement something like that as your quasi-legal roles. So, but I can only can't express this anymore. But again, I think WorkSafe is one of the best opportunities people can be a part of it. They're a great organisation, and they have some very good opportunities. But the other thing that I would also want to mention was, for people like Jack who are coming into the legal profession later, don't ever forget what you've done in your past career, because there are so many things that you can bring with you into your law career as a lawyer. For example, with Jack, being a copper and also working in different areas, and I had a little bit of a giggle when you said tenacity, Jack. That was spoken like a true policeman. If anyone's watched the Underbelly series, that was one of the most common words spoken by one of the head detectives within Victoria Police. But don't forget that if you're an engineer, if you're an architect, there's so much you can bring into the legal profession from your experience. So don't discount anything that you've done in the past as well.
If I could also jump in here, just following on from that, like I've been in the army previously, and looking at going back as a reservist as a legal officer, hopefully next year. That's another avenue as well, because you're dealing with not just military issues, but you're dealing with multi-billion-dollar contracts for supply of equipment, personnel issues. So that's another avenue you could look at going, but probably if you're a bit younger as well. But again, that's you're dealing with some big ticket items in a military legal sense, from contracts and acquisitions.
Yeah.
So that's another area that perhaps if anyone has ever considered that, to have a look at it as well.
I was just going to add in one person, and I don't know, Jack, if you remember him, but he was always up on all the posters around the VU Law School, and he was a school lawyer. Yeah, and he was phenomenal because he had a really fascinating background, but he ended up working in one of the schools in the western suburbs, and his role was on the intervention side. So he worked with the kids that might have gone a bit astray and got themselves into problems with the law. Yeah. And he was also kind of representing them at court and working with the families, but really trying to kind of intervene with that perpetuating of issues. So, I mean, who would think that there was such a position? And that was a pilot program through West Justice, one of the community legal centres. So,
great program.
Yeah, I mean, always interesting positions out there, and it's so common for people to move and change directions.
Yeah.
Community legal services too. They're another avenue to go and cut your teeth.
Yeah. Well. Yep. Legal aid. There's, I mean, as Ravi said, the world is your oyster. You probably are only limited by your own knowledge of what actually is out there, the opportunities that exist out there. I, for one, would never, if you had to come to law school and told me to go practice in insurance law, would never have even thought of it. Thought insurance sounded the most hideously boring, dry. I mean, it's just wouldn't even have appealed to me if someone had have mentioned that. And yet, it was a really, really interesting area to practice in. Very rarely was any 2 days ever the same. And same sort of thing as Jack said. I mean, I was, involved in some massive litigation, 20+ million on some mediations with 40 lawyers and QCs around a mediation table. I mean, experiences that you could never perhaps even dreamed of at law school. So definitely it's only as small as your knowledge of what's available.
I once helped a pilot find work. He was a pilot become lawyer. And this massive piece of litigation came up where an individual was suing an aviation company. Yeah. And this guy knew the ins and outs of everything to do with a plane. And they took him on, and he was only a year into being a lawyer, but he knew so much about the aviation industry. That was all that he needed. So
wow.
Yeah. Amazing.
It is.
Yeah. So I think your mindset, that's it again. So I think you just said, Jackie, something like you're only limited by
your knowledge, like
knowledge and mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It is true. I don't think we've got any more questions. I mean, one tip I would perhaps say to students is that go and work on your LinkedIn profile, update it, and then start connecting with people. Often after these events, I do lots of events, as does Susan. I would, often I might have 20 requests by the time I finished a webinar. You need to get in contact with us, connect with us on LinkedIn. We follow a whole range of law firms, organizations, different HR personnel follow us on LinkedIn. We're connected with Ravi, a legal recruiter. I mean, this is really where you start. So my advice is start getting on that LinkedIn, getting connected. I mean, I was hopeless at LinkedIn at law school. I probably have only really been updating my profile in the last 2 years. I know I'm terrible. Do as I say, don't do as I do. But I think that's a good place to start if you're looking for somewhere to start.
Just with the LinkedIn too, like webinars such as this, you get legal webinars and there might be 100 odd people. I'll write down their names. So I'll look at the participants and write down their names, and then I start linking up with them.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's a great resource because they've got the same interest as you.
Yeah.
And then just send off invitations. Hopefully they say yes. If not, oh well, keep going.
And that's right. And it doesn't look, if there's no harm done. If they don't connect, then that's fine. Don't take it personally. Just move forward, as Susan said. We might almost wrap it up, I think. I don't think we've got any more questions. I wanted to thank our panel. You're all fantastic. I think we could sit and talk for perhaps another couple of hours. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jack and Ravi and Susan. I mean, for Susan and I, we really could just sit and talk all day, couldn't we?
We could, absolutely. Yeah.
But I just wanted to wish we do have, I think we've got a message, or is that
I think it was a thank you.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you. I'm so glad you've enjoyed it. Thank you
Thanks,
to
Tamara.
organising, and thank you to our wonderful panel for being a part of today.
Pleasure.
Absolute pleasure.
Bye.
Thanks
Bye,
for having us.
everyone.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.